So my channel is basically 100%, well let's say 95% about Jeeps, but I have this thing and I keep getting comments about it, so we're just gonna give you a tour like you didn't know nothing about it. And to make sure you don't leave the video, the first thing we're gonna do is fire it up. It should fire up. It's a big motor, I can't even say it. Microphone reset on the camera.
Probably had to let my ears reset too.
I had some heat in the motor for all you motor geeks. Like I said, I'm just going to explain this thing like you have no clue about nothing. You know, some people probably know more, but I want you to leave here knowing exactly. Well, let's just start with the sport. I may clip in some scenes, but I would say technology has evolved. And over the years of rock crawling, everybody crawled stuff. Well then, parts kept getting bigger, bigger axles, bigger tires, better suspension. And next thing you know, rock crawling turned into rock bouncing. So the stuff that you was crawling over, now people are just like me, hitting stuff wide open, jumping to the top of it. So. That's something you can look up on your own and kind of figure out. But like I said, this is, where do you think bypasses were invented from? Trophy truck racing?
Bypass, yeah, they had to be on trophy trucks, had to have been.
Basically like West Coast stuff, I would be completely honest, West Coast stuff has evolved over to us East Coast people that didn't have, why would we need these rock crawling? Nobody needs them. So, like I said, you can look up rock bouncing, it's a sport. We do racing, you know, timed racing around obstacles and stuff like that. But I'll just go through, show you everything, you know, pretty much 100% custom built. Now, I didn't build it, somebody else did, but it's not really something you just go to the store and buy. So.
Start talking.
So I'm a pretty unique individual about how I do things, and any other regular person would start at the front, work their way back. Guess what? We're at the back, we're gonna work our way forward.
We're doing it backwards.
Doing it backwards. I think the first thing we'll discuss is from the wheel to this wheel, every single thing you see is 100% custom built. I didn't do it. Justin can pan around and stuff in there. Every knuckle, every C hub, every gusset.
Bump stop tab.
Every single thing you see right here is relatively custom built. And I'll get to the 9-inch stuff.
Yep.
Dogs ain't helping nothing.
Sure they are.
So I'm sure everybody should know what a 9-inch is. And that's like motors. You base stuff off of.
She's trying to catch a horse fly.
Bring a smile to me. But how would you say that in motor terms? You can't just go build a custom crankshaft to go in a custom motor. You can, but that's what.
Well, it's like stuff is LS based, or you know, big block based or something like that. You gotta start with something. She's almost got it.
I think it's a Hornet. It is hard to make a video. So, this is not scripted. So back to what I was saying, like, your motor stuff is based off of something. So over the years, people have used 9-inch stuff, and this is based off of a 9-inch, but you may can get in there and pan around. I can show you the front gears. I can't show you these gears, but this is actually a 10-inch ring gear. So instead of the ring gear being essentially 9 inches, they've enlarged it to 10 inches. Has like massive, massive teeth. And being the 9-inch stuff, it has the pinion support, and that's a huge thing in this sport, is the way the gears contact each other, they deflect, and that's what breaks them. So, and then naturally, you gotta have big stuff here. The U-joint is basically what's in a 3500 truck, like a Duramax or a Power Stroke. So that's a massive U-joint. I'm sure somebody's broke them. I haven't. And then like drive shaft stuff, this is, I honestly think these are, yeah, that's what these are. This is bush hog parts. This is bush hog parts for like a massive tractor. And then going on up through there, it's like 1/4-inch wall DOM tubing. Those drive shaft's probably like 100 pounds.
So explain how the rear steer works while we're here.
So in the racing that we do, you get in tight situations, and the way this rear steers have kind of evolved, people are like, you know, it was just to go around like a tree or something slow, and you watch certain people, and I mean, I'm not as good as others, but they'll be going through there, and I'll show you the button. Well, let me just show you. You can stand there and watch it.
Yeah, we'll watch.
I'll show you the button in a second. But what it is, it's got a cable that runs over there, and then it's got 2 sensors. And naturally, it just wants to go back straight. That was the thing back in the day. They had essentially log splitter valves, and they would just sit there and turn it like you would do a log splitter. So I've got a button right here. I'll hold it, and when I let go, it stays exactly where I want it to until I decide that I want to go straight. You just let it go.
Goes back to center.
So this is the one that moves the tires. And then like I said, you pistol grip this, hold that tight, and you can set it where you want it. And then when you get done, you just let go. And hopefully it goes back to where it's supposed to. Usually it does.
It's supposed to. It's what it's usually supposed to do.
And for years, everybody was using the front hydraulic steering pump to power the rear steer. Now, I don't think you can even see it. There's like a ginormous electric motor and a pump. I don't even know what it's actually for, but that's actually what's supplying back here. And then we'll show you up front on the steering wheel. So one thing that's kind of odd, and again, this is probably from trophy truck origination, I would assume, maybe Ultra 4, but there's not as much weight back here because all the weight's up front. So what they do, it's the same as using a pry bar. This right here, instead of the shock being mounted exactly on the axle, you can see there's no weight back here for the shock to actually work. So what they do is they take and shove all this forward, and now, like I said, it's the same as you was using a pry bar and creating leverage. Instead of it supporting, you know, a couple 100 pounds back here, now you move it forward and you're actually multiplying the leverage of that. And on top, it gives you essentially, I'd say 40% more travel per inch per that. So
explain why you're using a coilover and a bypass. Some people may not know that.
Okay, yeah, that's, I admit when I got into it, I didn't even know the difference. And for years, I was like, why don't you just combine these instead of running 2? Well, this is old school technology. It's just got like a normal shock. It's got a shaft that goes in with a set of pistons, and you can change the pistons on how the shock reacts. All right, we'll transfer this same technology over to this thing called a bypass.
Get in here closer.
Yep. So it's got a piston that goes up, and as it's coming up, it's creating pressure up in here. Well, old school like this, the fluid resisted the pistons going around. Well, now they've invented these things where you valve them too stiff, and it's called a bypass. So there's a spring and a little check valve in here. As this piston's coming up, it's creating pressure up in here. And instead of going around the piston, they're called a bypass because literally these bypass valves go around the piston. So you can sit here and fine tune on these little adjustment screws right here and get your suspension dialed in just right. Same principle. Nope, I was showing you right, showing you wrong. Piston comes up, fluid is trying to get compressed. It comes down these tubes to go around the piston. And again, these valves down here, these will be the ones you'd adjust to control how they work. These, if you jump something and the axle's trying to come down, it's coming down, creating pressure down here, and it go up these valves right here. Same principle. So that's how that works. And that's one thing, this particular chassis builder, Reject Fab, we agreed that all the weight's up here. So me and him both agreed, like, there's no weight up here. And the more weight you can have back here for suspension, that these shocks actually, they need weight to work with.
If you
look up Ultra 4.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Look up Ultra 4 racing. It's very similar racing. Every one of them will have 1, maybe even 2 spare tires off the back. So
like hanging way back here.
Yep. That's what they said. If you ever have a rock bouncer and don't have, like, this is 26 gallons. So I don't know, that's probably how many 100 pounds? 7 times 26 is...
I can't do math on the fly.
It's very close. It's over 200 pounds.
Yep.
So that's what they say. If you can't get your suspension tuned in, you've seen people do this before. They'll ratchet strap a spare tire up here just to go race with. That gives the shock some weight to actually control, I guess is the word. And we'll get to the motor. I'm not going to give a little secret away, but this is a supposedly good for 1,000 horsepower fuel pump. And I'll just give you a little secret that it's about maxed out. And then we'll kind of move to the center here. Honestly, I don't want to pull this cover off here because it's embarrassing, but the first buggy I had was a 2-seater, and this buggy could be built into a 2-seater, but just something simple. My first one to get the transmission out was probably what, a 6-7 hour job to get it out. And then you had to come through the window without a bell housing, drop it in. It was a catastrophe, but it was a 2-seater trail rig. This is 100% race car. So you've got air filter, computer, electronics, battery, rear steer, electric, water pump.
Everything is crammed in that little area right there.
But, you know, the transmission probably comes out in like 2 hours, probably an hour and a half to be honest. And then some of you probably noticing the radiator. It's got a electric water pump that actually pumps it from here to there. So again, this could be mounted, give or take, in this area if it was a 2-seater. This is strictly race car, so it's right here. Let me get in and show you some stuff in there. Most people probably seen it, but if you notice, the steering wheel is not attached. And funny story, while we're here, we was getting ready for a race, and Justin clicked this up for me, if I can get it on there, and he forgot to click it in. He just assumed I'd do it. So I'm all strapped in, you know, just racing. I'm holding from doing that. Well, then I jump a hill, and the steering wheel comes off. Well, next thing you know, it's another double. So it's either jump and case into the double. So I just hold my steering wheel back, put her flat on the floor, jump the double, and when I land, I can clip it back in. So steering wheel, let's see, I'll move that so you can see.
Yep.
This is I wouldn't call it a cheap shifter, but it could be better, but I like it because it's exactly how I like it. Park, and then, let's see, that would be reverse if he was going back up. And this is a power glide. Ain't really nothing I can show you about it, but that'll drop it down if you wanted to neutral drop. That's first gear, second gear, first gear, second. You can't, you're racing just bobbling around. You're just shifting gears. But if you're in a pickle and something happened, you need to reverse, you just hit reverse. If you're in second gear, well, got reverse.
I don't know if you can see it. There's gates in here, and he has to push it that way to go to reverse. So
these little gates, like I said, got to go that way, and then got to move over to go to reverse, but you can't go to park, and then you got to go over. So fully customizable. I built that little piece there. It didn't come with it, but yep. Like I said, this is rear steer. The whole time I'm racing, I'm sitting here going back and forth between these. But you move it, that'll hold it still, and you're going through a turn, then you decide you're ready to go straight, just let go. Master keel, switches, funny story, finally got this thing running right, and I made a turn, massive tire, slung a mud clod in, and I swear for goodness, it landed right there, killed my buggy. I don't know, I gotta build a shield over that. That's just a freak accident. Go down and show them the fire aid while we're...
Everybody thinks that it looks like a nitrous tank. It's not.
It's got a... Right here, I've got a pull cord, and I'll give them credit. What are these? It's called... What is this place called? Fire aid? Is that what it's called?
I think it's on the tank. Fire Sense.
Fire Sense.
Fire Sense.
It's a full system. I've got a nozzle right here, and I've got a nozzle on the motor, and I've got a nozzle right under here where my finger is, and then there's a nozzle going over here into this disaster area. But it's the only one I found that has a glass bubble that when it gets to like, I don't know, 180 degrees, the bubble busts. I think it's a glass bubble, ain't it?
I think it's like you would see in a ceiling, like fire.
Yeah, probably same exact thing. Or I've got a pull cord right here, and it had a cotter pin you had to pull every time. I was like, I don't want to pull this cotter pin every time. So Dex got smart, got a piece of solder. So it's soft metal, and now I can just pull and break the solder. That they say that gives you, doesn't put the fire out, but it makes you wet and gives you roughly about 30 seconds.
It's to save you. It's not to really save the buggy, but
while I'm thinking about it, because I'll forget, you've probably seen these things. They're called window nets. It's actually shrinking on me, getting shorter. But essentially all it's for is your elbow can't go past. If your elbow can't go past, your hands can't go flying. So if you was rolling down a hill, as much as you think that you would be holding onto the steering wheel, you could knock out, get blacked out, and not even know. Like my buddy flipped, his boot went through this sheet metal, was sticking out of there. So you get knocked out more than you realize.
Some racers, they either use a window net or they'll have The
hand restraints.
hand restraints.
I thought it was weird. Oh. I've got a fire extinguisher right here too. You don't have to see it, but they've got they hook into their harness right here, and they actually hook onto your elbow. I thought they'd hook onto your wrist.
Yep.
But that way, if your elbow can't go past here, unless you break your arm can't go flying.
Right.
That's that. And if you've ever watched Monster Jam and seen the little light up there and notice how Monster Jam now kills them every time they get a flat tire. If you can see, there's a little box down here that's glowing. See the little glow?
Yep.
That's the same principle. So this thing,
It's actually the same box, is it not?
it's the same company that builds the same box. But, again, you'd be surprised how hard you hit stuff. And I wouldn't say get knocked out, but blacked out. But say you do get knocked out and hold this thing wide open, it's fast. And that way they can flip a switch, kill the buggy. At least you roll to a stop, don't go through the crowds.
You'll give them a little snidbit of the down there.
Oh yeah, you can see it got good brakes on this buggy. I'll get on that. But you got good control, and then I've got my massive gas pedal right here. I've actually got a thing where you bottom out, if you can see my toe kicker there. That way, I've seen people actually stand on that and actually break the gas pedal. But the harnesses, I wanted to show you if I can get buckled in. I've heard of people doing this, but I honestly didn't think it existed. I thought it was a joke. Explain a Hans device.
A Hans device?
Yeah.
Pretty much to keep your head from going forward.
Dale Earnhardt invented it, didn't he? No.
No, I don't think they.
I think that's when they not invented it. I thought that's when they.
I don't know when it got invented. I don't want to lie.
Anyway, it's got like I'm going racing. It's already boxed up, but it's buckles up here and it buckles around your chest. Keeps your head from going so far it actually breaks your neck.
It actually stands for something. I don't remember.
Head and neck restraint.
That makes sense.
Yeah, safety. But
So you'll have to hold the camera for this one. I know what you're about to try to show them here.
So again, just regular harnesses here, but you want to be as tight as you can be.
Let me see if I can go up under the bottom there.
I got a good view. So it's actually a freaking ratchet. I mean, literally, you sit here and ratchet, and you just sit here and just keep cranking away until you can't move anywhere.
Supposedly, in monster trucks, they have a ratchet for, I think, every corner, don't they?
Well, they have some that go around your legs right here. Same thing we was just talking about. That way, if your knee can't go up, your leg can't go flying.
Right.
But they have a ratchet that clips into that, and they'll stick it under the leg and actually get it out every time they need it. But that's that. Should be able to get out of this thing quick. Holley 7-inch touchscreen. I feel like everybody knows what that is, don't they?
They've probably seen it before. Cloud fuel pump, PRP seats.
Yeah, this seat. I love this seat. Not sponsored by them. Real quickly, on the steering, this is kind of cool. It's actually very similar. I think it is the same pump that I know Ryan Anderson and a lot of them run, but it creates hydraulic pressure, and there's a thing called, some people call it an orbital valve, some people call it a orbital valve and something else. But it literally has 4 lines. It takes pressure in, and then it has pressure going out, and then it has 2 that goes to the ram. I gotta show you how good the steering is. So we're gonna fire it up. I wanna show you how quick this steering is. It's pretty awesome. It's gotta have a little RPM in it, but you're sitting here, you can go like lock to lock and never let off the steering. So
I don't know if y'all have ever drove tractors before. They're nowhere near that fast.
My red Jeep had hydraulic steering. It was 8 turns to the one lock and then 8 turns back, where this is about a turn. All right,
That's pretty much everything in the cab.
It's got full roof, but this roof is actually higher and I sit lower. My old buggy, you'd be going straight and there's like a 70-degree hill that you're gonna go up, and your line of sight is right here. So honestly, I wish it was cut off. I like the way it looks and safety reasons, but you'd be surprised, my other one you was looking about right here. So you would be driving into a hill and not even know where you're going. So next thing you know, you're looking up and you're aiming at a tree.
The panels on the roof up here, they come in more handy than you would think, because rollovers, tree limbs, rocks, I mean.
You'll hit a tree, the limb break out, come straight down and try to,
Yeah.
Safety reasons. All right, let's show you some tires real quick. There's multiple tire selections. This is just preferred choice, but Go Forth Tires, the only person I know that sells these tires. He's got like bibs on how he gets them, but it's the same tire that any mud person would buy with 43-inch TSL stick or 43-inch TSL SX. But this compound is sticky, same as you would like a drag car. And you know, you can't tell in video, but they're actually a sticky compound. And this is a full tire. Let me roll the other tire over here. This is the light race version.
It doesn't look like it, but that tire compared to that tire,
Like a 33.
like you're not gonna just pick that up. Well,
I'm not.
oh, we're not gonna pick it up.
This,
but
I swear for goodness, this weighs about what a 33. I mean, you see how muscle I am, but you can pretty.
you ain't gonna do that with this one.
So come in. This is a strictly race tire. Well, I wouldn't say strictly, but I'm going to a not really important race. It's all on rock, but this is the same tire. You probably have to zoom in. Well, there's my accident that just happened. See that line right there where they cut and groove?
I mean, that right there is the original.
Yeah. So you can compare these tires to the same. They go through and clip these center lugs out to make them more for mud and rock or dirt and stuff like that. So same thing, the sport's kind of evolved into more dirt than actually rock racing. That's where this tire comes in. And like we was just saying, they groove all this stuff out. I'm not sure, but I think they shave roughly, no, it's not 100 pounds. It's 100 pounds on the USD tire, but I don't know. Probably
I mean, you see it, they shave them pretty much down
to the cord.
to the cord.
But my theory, like this lug right here, in my personal opinion, in this 4,000 pound high horsepower rig, this lug right here is simply going to fold over. So I actually got another tire we'll go show you.
Yeah.
I forgot I even had these. Luckily, I got some to show you. These ain't even mine. But again, this is the same tire, but they haven't like grooved it and made it that. So the lug is only that tall. Actually, I know I'm 100% right, because a backhoe, a brand new backhoe tire is like that, because they say it's so much pressure the lug will actually fold over.
Yep.
So that lug's not as tall. I honestly think that's better, but it's heavier. Yep. And then, well, I'll get on to the center hub here. It's probably going to surprise you what it is, but the wheels are 8 on 6.5, 8 lug, and they're forged. What does forged even mean? Like pushed together? Cast is just poured in there.
Yeah, cast is just poured, or cast is just poured in there, and then forged is like
pressed together. These things, I had a set of cast wheels. I think I busted a wheel every single time I took the thing out. These are, like I said, forged, and obviously they're bead locked, but these things are tough. I'll break one this weekend, but I haven't bent a wheel yet.
somebody will probably correct us on the forging process, but I think that's something.
That's right. They drop it into a thing and then they press it to make it condensed.
Yeah.
If not, correct me. I'd like to learn myself. And like I was saying, this front end is essentially the same. I'll explain the difference here in a second. But one of the only things that is store-bought is the bearing. You need a hub bearing, and I'm pretty sure any like 05 Super Duty F250, that's the wheel bearing for one of them. So that's what the RCV axle shoves off in there. And then it's got like a bolt out here that holds it together. So that axle is like that big because it takes place of the lockout for the F250.
I forgot about that. It's the entire size of the lockout spline.
Like normally you'd have like a lockout hub. The RCV just shoves off in there, so it's like that big around. Kind of useless, but they had to fit the hole. So the other buggies I had, for simplicity, they had the brake mounted like inboard on the drive shaft, and I'm not going too in depth on that, but this is like 457 gears. So when this tire is turning, this thing's got 100 mile an hour wheel speed. So if this tire was turning 100 mile an hour, oh my gosh, good Lord. That means that drive shaft is turning
400 miles an hour? No? Is that right? We're sitting here thinking to ourselves, yeah, that's right.
That is right. Oh my God. Okay.
No,
so
that's right, because we was talking about the other buggy you drove, we'd run about 67 or
it
something
had a
like
lower
it.
horsepower motor. It would do about 50 something, and it had 410s, and that was like 220 mile an hour on a 10, 12-inch rotor for a Mazda B2000.
Yes.
So I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna get too in depth on that, but it's the same principle as leverage. It's spinning faster, which means it does have more grab, which means it works better, but it works so good and I can drag it out. But the thing that got me, I was coming down a race wide open. I hit the pedal, the rotor exploded.
Right beside your leg.
Right beside my leg right here. And the previous round of the race, there would have been people. So I'm not saying I would have killed people, but I would have run through the crowd and I would have never. So when this buggy come along, I said, I want the best freaking brakes I can get. And ironically, I've got his shirt on. I didn't wear that on purpose.
Yep.
This guy, I forgot about the shocks, talking about that. Anyway, the brakes, not gonna get lost on them. So believe it or not, I can't remember the name of the company. I'll add it up here when I figure it out. But essentially race car brakes with off-road base pads on them. So they've got 3 pistons like Corvette rotors. They've got 3 pistons per that. Everything's high speed. The rotor's some kind of fancy stuff. I paid a lot of money for the brakes, but they work so good because you can literally leave your foot on the pedal the whole time and just kind of finesse it. And
I never thought about that. They're made for, 150 mile an hour wheel speed, and you're turning not that much.
Yeah, I mean, usually going slow, but they work freaking amazing. I have 0 complaints about them. If I had to complain, the rocks get in between the wheels and the caliper, but haven't had trouble. Works good. I got lucky when I built this thing. It was right before COVID started, so there was still enough supply of parts to make this thing come together. But the holdup he was trying to build it is, again, all this is custom built. He needed these and couldn't get them. And I ordered Fox shocks, waited
Almost a year, I think.
I don't want to lie. Whatever the time was, it doesn't matter. I think I did wait about 6 months. I was like, I've got to have something. So I ordered these, are rad flows, and I promise you, I don't lie. I'll say the Fox come in on a Tuesday, and then these come in on a Wednesday. Like a year apart, they come in within the same day. So I feel like somebody's tied up on that, and that's where I was going. These, my shop guy right here was getting mad because he didn't have nothing to work with. So they's like, well, we got these all TIG welded up, but we haven't had them powder coated. He said, just send me something. So these got sent out, and he's like, what color do you want them? I was like, just freaking clear them. And they're just clear coated. They're starting to rust in a few spots like that. But after they sent them out, they realized the Radflow made a mistake, I guess because they were rust. So these will be the only ones you ever see like this, to my knowledge, because they said they'd never do it again.
I will say that was the cool part about it. He said these are the only Radflow shocks that you'll ever see bare metal like that.
Hey, drop back to the rear. Before we go on that, I don't know how we missed this. This is the trailer arm setup, and most of you are going to be known for the ones that have the big shiny 775 billet aluminum ones.
Oh yeah.
And they look good. Everything's good about them. But if you didn't know about, is it 775 aluminum?
That sounds right.
I believe. Anyway, it's billet aluminum. It's strong, but it's brittle. So we're racing on rocks, and if you hit right here with a rock, guess what happens? It just disintegrates.
I was saying, when it breaks, you can imagine what happens.
When it breaks, this goes in the ground, breaks your shock, breaks this, your axle comes back, slings your drive shaft. I mean, just to be honest, if that broke, including those are like $4,000, I mean, you would be out 10 grand just over a simple mistake. I think I can dig up pictures. I actually won a race. This is DOM tubing. This is actually half wall, like it's 1/2 inch thick. And then I've added this right here. But
I was like, I've got pictures of it.
But steel will bend, and then you can just go bend it straight back. So even if it does bend, nothing actually breaks, and you can finish the race. That's where I was going up here. Same principle. When these rock buggies started, everybody went to aluminum because it's big, bulky, and
it looks good.
Looks good. But as I got into it, I started realizing like people are breaking them, they're shattering. So these are all DOM. If anybody cares, this is 188 wall, and this is 120 wall. It's pretty thin. Everybody said it wouldn't work. It's working. But again, they can bend, and you can drive the thing back on the trailer. Again, this is based off of a 9-inch, but they went and like 100% custom built this stuff. Instead of it being a low pinion for the rear, Same principle as a Cherokee that I haven't explained yet, but this is a high pinion. So it sits up, got the gears on the right side. I'll explain that better, but big U-joints, all that, big 1-inch bolts.
I need Ellie back in here. There's a horsefly buzzing around my head.
See if we can see the gears. I think it's about got the front end covered. You're supposed to check these, I don't, but look how big that gear is. Can you see it? Yeah, put your finger in for, yeah. Nobody brought a flashlight.
Bump stops. They're pretty standard.
Yeah, like I said, this is all your suspension, but if somehow you do go blow through the shock, this is basically just a nitrogen charged piston with like extreme stiff valving in there. And this hits right there. Usually I'll slide this right up there. See if you're using them. Sometimes I put a zip tie, but that's basically how you tune suspension in, is put you a zip tie, and if it's going down every time, you need to stiffen it up. So that's something I've actually got to do.
Tell them about your add-on piece here. Bet you forgot about that, didn't you?
Yeah. Long story. We'll get on motor and save that for last, best part. But I fought issues for 2.5 years. One time I thought I had it running right. Man, I crossed the finish line so hot. I was so excited. Somebody was coming this way and I locked up the brakes. This tube was not there. It was just a piece of quarter plate and then another piece of quarter plate that come together. I smashed a tree, caved this in, and couldn't finish the race and wanted to cry. I parked it for about a year after that, didn't I? So got that took care of. You notice it's actually clear coat because I didn't have the powder coat. So I think that's about got the suspension covered. If anybody did notice, there's like limit straps. You can get away without those, but the parts inside the shock where they just keep banging onto each other will eventually take their toll.
They're fairly expensive too.
Yeah, they're expensive. Everything on this thing's expensive. Steering, that's like I said, look how little this pump actually is. This is not even the pump. This is just a bearing support. That's the pump right there.
Yeah.
And then that's the reservoir, holds the fluid right there. And then this belt routing is 100% custom built. Look at the tensioner. If you're a Jeep person, you might notice that is it's like a WJ thing, but it's kind of actually universal. Believe it or not, more people use that than you know about. It's universal in kits. So now the motor.
Where do we start?
I'll get tongue twisted on this one. It's a lot of money, but it's a Dart Chevrolet big block. I don't know exactly what that is, but I know from what I was told, I bought it secondhand, but it's a 555 Chevrolet big block, 14.5-to-1 compression. And the way the big block's designed, you say 14.5-to-1 on some stuff, it's just like a dome piston. This thing goes out and like uniform with the head to make it high compression. So high compression means that it needs expensive race fuel to not pre-detonate.
Brodix heads.
Big Brodix extra 2 heads. That's not the best head ever for a big block, but the thing runs good. If you notice it don't have a throttle cable, that's just something else to go wrong, mud. And that's one thing we run into with my other ones is we race through mud. Well, right here would be simply where you'd want to put an air filter, naturally. And the other buggy I had borrowed, one race it fell off and I had to splash through a creek. He didn't know about that. But we come up with the idea, this actually runs back around and goes down and splits. And there's 2 massive filters down there that you probably can't see. What is the word Lance used? Volumetric
efficiency.
Volumetric efficiency is actually pretty good. He looked at that surprisingly. And then we've got the exhaust that comes back, that Y pipes that's supposed to create that's your part to shine. What's the word I'm looking for?
I know what
scavenging effect.
Yeah, scavenging effect, yep.
So it's got a massive cam, like 820 thousandths lift, and yeah, it scavenges exhaust through there. So when we built this thing, if you didn't know, every big block comes with a distributor. Well, new school technology comes along and, well, you just walked around the wrong angle. Can you see it?
I can see it in there.
There's no, there is a distributor, but it doesn't do distributor things. And it's actually got, can you see the coils right here?
Let me walk back around.
Obviously, this is kind of like LS technology. I would say LS technology. It's just a new technology. But there's 8 individual coils with big coil wires that go to the plugs. So big blocks don't come with these, but I got them. That's actually loose. Need to tighten that up. But So where the distributor goes is now what they call Holley dual sync. And it goes in and it reads the cam the way it should. And then it's also got an extra sensor. How this works, I don't really know. But it's got one sensor for the cam and it's got another sensor that's supposed to read crank signal. I personally think that's what I fought for 2.5 years. And I would like your input on this. Everybody I've talked to says the cam is like that big around. Justin can testify for me.
Yeah, I mean, we got one laying over there.
But it goes all the way through the motor and it's driving the oil pump back here. And they're saying that maybe it flexes just a few degrees, which multiplies to the crankshaft 2 to 1. So this finicky motor here, I guess for all these years, didn't like that. And maybe it's just because the chassis is loud, it shakes. I don't know, not an overly smart engine person. But from my understanding that flex was throwing the timing off just a few degrees. It's not ideal for what we do, but show them the crank trigger we added.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You got magnet, reads right here, same as what's on a LS, except LS is on the back.
It's kind of old school technology, and they say rocks will hit it and get it knocked off there. At this point, 2.5 years, and for as much money as I spent on this thing, I don't care. If it'll run 2 or 3 races, me keep throwing them on there. But for anybody struggling, that was my struggle.
Well, we've always said the same thing. I said, you got a cam trigger down here. It's going to be as accurate as it's going to be. By the time it goes through this timing chain, through all the valve train, which I don't remember what the springs are on here, but they're massive.
650 pounds.
By the time that all these springs, in which some of them will cancel each other out, and then it tries to read at the very, very back there.
I feel like it's sitting there just shaking.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what you're welcome to feed input on that. But we've been fighting this thing for years, and he threw the crank trigger on there. The guy that tuned it was in Maryland. I'm in Tennessee. So I think he did 3 tunes, didn't he?
Yeah, he did 3 because he didn't have enough time.
He was just in his backyard, the dude that built it. So this thing could probably make even more horsepower. I don't know, but it runs. I'm satisfied. I think the only thing left is the transmission. I don't have his t-shirt on, but it's called Fritz Transmissions in Marion, Kentucky.
Marion, Kentucky.
And out of all things on this buggy, that transmission, I've checked it twice, honestly, because it never idled. But Power Glide transmission, let me hold my finger up so I remember something. Power Glide works flawlessly, never had a trouble out of it. We did change stalls from like a 3400 to like a 5200. So this thing sits at like 6500 now when you. Call on it. It's kind of cool. But that's one thing I was going to say is as soon as I bought a Power Glide, everybody started going to Turbo 400s, back to old school technology, I guess you'd say. Anyway.
It'd actually be newer.
Newer school.
Yeah.
But the Power Glide is seriously like that long, and the Turbo 400 is about that long. And the transfer case, we'll get down here, Justin's knees will take a while.
Oh, God. Let me just slide up under here.
All right. The transfer case is, I got this wrong, is built by the same people that build Monster Jam transmission.
Yep.
It's the smaller version of it, but nobody's breaking it.
Yes, that is, we talked about this before. Is it
SCS?
That is the one thing, I don't know that anybody's ever actually.
Jay Stort's broke output shaft. I don't know how, it may have been loose, I don't know, but I don't think anybody's breaking them, which is kind of rare for a sport that we do.
Everybody breaks everything in this sport.
But that's where I was going. If you bring this back another, 10 inches, you'd have to have a mid drive shaft right here. So you have to have like a 12-inch drive shaft and then actually pivot up here. Gets into the links and all that stuff. Not going to get overkill, but I got one-piece drive shaft that I think works front and back, so that's awesome.
And there's obviously a skid plate.
Yep.
I don't think you've ever hardly even used it.
No.
And I think there's a battery hanging out up under there.
Battery, you may see that pump that I was talking about.
Yeah, that's the pump right there. There's some air filters.
Yeah,
there.
got some knockoff panels that I zip tied on there, kind of keep water off there. But Alright, get back up. I don't know if I can get back up. Oh yeah, remember my stroker build? Actually, I can go show you. That's what, to get gas in it, I wanted a big cap so you can hit the hole. So that's that one I was talking about on my stroker build. I ordered for aluminum tank, and this is steel tank. We run steel tanks, same principles I just told you about the control arms. A lot of people tried aluminum tanks, and believe it or not, all these chassis flex and stuff, and aluminum doesn't, and it cracks right along there. So massive steel tank. It's got a rollover valve. In case you roll it over, it doesn't leak fuel on your head.
They probably want to hear it run one more time.
Yeah, we'll crank it up. Sway bar, believe it or not, it's kind of hard to explain. That sway bar is basically the same as an axle shaft. Well, I reckon that's got it covered. I'm gonna load this thing up, go to the race and see if I can do any good. We'll ease out of here.
Ease out of here, huh?